Another fundamental gameplay aspect that we can change that will make a big difference to how our game feels is how we shoot our gun. So if we hit play once again here, just to get the game running, and if I just jump up out of the way, whenever we shoot, we have to press the button to shoot the whole time. But what can make a game a little bit more interesting, a little bit more fun for the player to play is if we were to hold the button down. At the moment, nothing happens. We're not doing anything when we hold the button. So it's more interesting and a little bit more kind of dynamic to have the gun repeatedly fire rather than just only firing when we press our button down. For example, although I'm playing a game right now with a mouse and keyboard, making it very easy to shoot as we run and jump, if you're playing with a controller, it can be very awkward to have the shoot button right beside the jump button, and trying to jump and shoot at the same time will cause issues within the game. So what we want to do is give the player the ability to just constantly shoot when we hold the button down. So we're going to do that change in our player controller script. So we'll go back into our scripts again, into our player controller script. Open this up here. And what we're going to do is add a couple of values that we can use to control how fast we're shooting. So below where we previously added our jump sound and our gun sound, we're going to add a new public float, wait between shots, and this will be how long we wait between shots, pretty obviously, between each time we shoot. What we also want to add is a public, not a public float, a private float that we'll call between shot counter. So our between shot counter is going to control the time ticking down as we fire off our shots. And we'll use the value of waiting between shots. So say we set that to be half a second. What'll happen is we'll use our between shot counter to count down, and whenever it gets to 0, we'll fire a shot and then start the countdown again at half a second. So we're using this value to set this value every time it counts down. And the way we do that is down here in our function for firing our bullets. So when we fire our bullets, we obviously want our player to immediately fire a bullet straight away. So we're going to leave our input.get button down at fire 1. We want to leave this intact just the way it is here, but we want to add one extra line down below it, which is to set our counter to start counting down. So that'll be our between shot counter is equal to wait between shots. So that means, again, if we have to set it to half a second, it'll set our between shot counter up to be half a second. So how are we going to make a countdown to keep our shots going? Well, what we're going to do is below our this whole if statement here, we're going to add another if statement that we're going to say if input dot get button. So instead of saying get button down, we'll just say get button. And what get button does is, as long as the button is being held, this value will be true. So we want to check if we're holding down fire 1. And if that is true, then what we want to do is start counting down our between shot counter. So between shot counter is now minus equals time dot delta time, which will make it count down as each frame of animation goes along through the game. And what we want to do then is check and see if our between shot counter goes below 0, then we fire off a bullet. So if between shot we're spelling this wrong altogether. Between shot counter is less than or equal to 0, then we're going to do some stuff here. So basically all we want to do here is the exact same stuff we did here of shooting a bullet, making the sound play, and resetting our counter. So we can just copy this little bit here and just paste it in there like that. Now, although we could just continue with this just fine, we could keep going. One of an important consideration within coding is always to try and keep your code as short as possible. And what we've got going on here is two little bits of section of code that are just doing the exact same thing. So there's no need to have, we don't really want to be repeating code in different places. So rather than having these two different things doing the exact same thing, what we're going to do is add an extra function down here. So below where we have on collision enter 2D there, we're going to add a new public void that we'll call shoot. We put 2 brackets, and then we put our open and close curly brackets, and we're just going to copy that whole bit that we just had there, and we're going to paste it in down below here. So it'll instantiate a bullet, it'll play the sound, and it'll set our between shot counter back to what it should be. And then here we're going to take these out, and instead we're just going to call that function we just created, our shoot function, like that. And we're going to do the same here. So now we've got our code a little bit more neat and a little bit more sensible. So rather than having 3 kind of using up 6 lines here, we're using a couple of lines, and we use a couple of lines down here. But if we want to shoot again in other situations, then we have it nice and handily already sorted out for us. So we can save this, and we can go back into the game here. Again, we let it compile for a second. Depending on your computer, sometimes compiling can take a little while, or sometimes compiling can be pretty quick. That's done. So we go to our player, and now we see we have a value down here for wait between shots. I'm going to set that to 0.2 for now, and we're going to hit play and jump up here. And now if we hold down the button, we can see our shots continually fire the whole time, which is just what we want to happen within our world. So that's absolutely perfect. That's just what we want. So now it feels a little bit more fun. So as I said, now if you're playing with a controller or anything, now it's much easier to just hold down the fire button and also hit the jump button at the same time, rather than having to be alternating between the two and trying to work out what's going on. But similarly, it's easier for the player using the mouse, because you're not having to keep clicking the whole time. You can shoot like this. But of course, now that we have this ability, we can also, if we want to, shoot really fast, or we can have a regular shot speed if we hold it down, which also adds a gameplay element to the game. So it kind of seems a little bit simplistic to just go, okay, so it's easy to just go like this. But now we have the extra element of, like, if the player rapidly taps on the mouse, you can add a little bit of challenge to the game, and the players have this inbuilt choice of how to approach the game. For something so passive and something so simple, it adds a huge amount of gameplay kind of choice into the world that you're creating.